We are throwing a mad bash to celebrate achievement in all things Laguna. Arts, music, sports, food and culture. And we're going to have a laugh while we're at it. Yep, the first annual Laguna Achievement Festival, the Laugh Awards, will be on Saturday, March 29th at 7 Degrees down there in Laguna Canyon. 5:30 to 11 p.m. officially, but it could go all night. Let's party. KXFM Club DJs The Ruckus and DJ Chayu will keep you dancing well into the night. There are going to be a lot of surprises. The whole thing's hosted by classy and brilliant comedian Rita Rudner.
They have to X-ray my toes.
5:30 p.m. the red carpet reception, 7 p.m. the awards ceremony, loads of live entertainment, 9 p.m. roof deck party, and 11 o'clock the after party at Laguna Beer Company. Go to kxfmradio.org/LAF to get tickets and to vote for your favourite folks in Laguna Beach. That's the first annual Laugh Awards on March 29th at 7 Degrees. Join Rita Rudner and a cast of wacko entertainers to remind you why being here is special. It's a fundraiser. Your little community radio station, KXFM. See you there.
Hey there, what's up, Laguna? Janice Murray here with news. Laguna, you deserve a laugh. The first annual Laguna Achievement Festival, featuring awards for the people who make our town great and move us forward in the areas of art, music, food, and culture. And it's sponsored by us, KXFM, Saturday night, March 29th at 7 Degrees on Laguna Canyon Road from 5:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. To vote for your favorite achievers, just go online to kxfmradio.org/LAF to secure your tickets. Comedian Rita Rudner will host this celebration of all things Laguna, a rollicking good time. So join us Saturday, March 29th, and go to kxfmradio.org/laugh for your tickets now. And I'm Janice Murray with news on KXFM.
KXFM 1047, Laguna's community radio.
Hi, this is KXFM meteorologist Dave Murray. The amazing Laguna Beach weather is still in full force as we go through the weekend on this Sunday, and the early clouds and fog right along the coast quickly gives up to sunshine. This is another sunny day. 65 at the beach, 66 the mountaintop, the canyon, 65. Tonight, nice evening, clear skies. Evening temperatures will drop into the upper 50s, 51 for the overnight low. Monday, early clouds. But again, plenty of sunshine. It's warmer on Monday. That's been on the schedule for a while, 72 degrees. About the same story on Tuesday, 68. Could see a couple of rain showers next weekend, but it's just a maybe at this point. That's my forecast. I'm meteorologist Dave Murray. Tune in, turn on to KXFM 1047, Laguna's community radio.
This disclaimer is a statement notifying listening audiences that any opinions expressed on our shows are not representative of Laguna Radio Inc., its management, or its board of directors.
Way up high, and the dreams that you dream of once in a lullaby. High on somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dream of, dreams really do. Someday you wish you all stop with the clouds up from behind. Over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dream that you did to oh, I can't
Oh, why can't I? This is Craig on KXFM 104.7 Rainbow Radio here this Sunday morning, March, 23rd at 10 a.m. in beautiful Laguna Beach. And as you heard, the weather is the weather from Dave this morning. It's a nice, I want to tell you how many degrees. 60 degrees, a nice 60 degrees, and we're very happy about that here in Laguna Beach. It's not quite a beach day, but we're going to get there. First of all, I got a few announcements, and then I have some fabulous guests here this morning. But let me get a few things out of the way here real quick. Laguna Beach Pride will have a Sunday bingo brunch, which only Laguna Beach Pride can have, which is Crazy Endora calling the bingo numbers. This year, we're partnering with Mozambique and Ivan's Room, which is a new, it's a newly created venue within Mozambique. And it's coming up on the it's coming up on Sunday, the 1st of June, which is the first day of what? Pride Month. And so that's how we're kicking it off here with Laguna Beach Pride. It's from 11 to 2 p.m., so it's 3 hours. And we'll be calling bingo, some fabulous bingo prizes. So it's a great time to come have some mimosas, a couple glasses of champagne, a little camaraderie. And you can call Mozambique to make reservations or go to LagunaBeachPride.org. LagunaBeachPride.org, and you can see all about the event. We also have an event on the 17th of May. Had to think here for a minute. 17th of May, and that is going to be a beach bonfire, and that's going to be in Huntington Beach, across from the Hilton Hotel on the beach there. So, and it's there's a lot of details in the works on that, and I'll share more with you as we go along. But that's the two things that I wanted to get out of the way. Also, as you probably heard, and the word is out, the Laugh Awards coming up at 7 Degrees in the Canyon, which should be a lot of fun. It's a newbie for us, and it's the first annual. And the thing I'm going to just say about it quickly is you need to vote. You know, they always say we need to vote. Well, you need to vote in Laguna, because this event is about finding the best achievements in Laguna. I had the honor years ago of being one of the what was the title? It was an illustrious title. A mover and shaker in Laguna Beach. There was like 8 of us in the group, and it's fun. There's some competition, so it goes everything from surfers to the best bartender, those who are part of the community, the best greeter, I believe. And you can vote. It's free. You just go and vote, just so we get the right people in front of that we honor at this event. And you can go to kxfmradio.org, kxfmradio.org. And there it pops right in your face, and you can click the button to say you want to vote. Also, you can reserve a space there. There is a limited space at 7 Degrees, and the party hopefully will go all night, continue. Like they do in Hollywood, you know, we have to have our own little thingy here with after party after party after party. So if you go, you're in the groove, and you're part of the party. So that's what's coming up. When is it? It's March 29th. It's a Saturday, March 29th. And it starts at 5:30. So I think would be wear a fun costume and walk down the red carpet, wear your boa and your vest and whatever you can put together that is kind of a madcap, and show up and be counted, be part of the party. And that's the end of my announcements for Rainbow Radio here this morning. And I want to bring in my guests now, which I dearly, I had recently had Patricia O'Brien on. And she should have been here on St. Patrick's Day, but I don't know where she was, probably drinking some green beer somewhere and forgot about it. So I have Tricia. Trish is a true advocate for healing, community, and transformation. She has dedicated her life to lifting others up, drawing from her own powerful journey through adversity, which, say life is the best lesson, as the best lessons taught. With a background in psychology and social psychology, where did that one come from?
New field.
It's a new word, a new field. Tricia has led impactful initiatives in nonprofit leadership, helping vulnerable communities find stability and purpose. Then we have our own local Price Dawn, has an MA. Well, Patricia has an MS, so they're competing, I guess, here. She's executive director of the Friendship Shelter here in Laguna Beach. Friendship Shelter does more than just shelter. I got to say that right off the bat. I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea because they do so much more. She's been there since 2008 and has more than 4 decades of nonprofit management experience. Boy, we got a real gold mine here of nonprofit management experience. She currently serves as Orange County's Continuum of Care Board, with where homelessness, that's a long homelessness system priorities are set. Dawn holds an MA in Mass Communications from Drake University and is certified in nonprofit leadership from Northwestern University. Welcome, Tricia. Say hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Oh, your microphone's working. My technology. And Dawn.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning to both of you. I'm going to turn your microphones both up just a little bit. I'm going to jump in with a news item to kind of start the feed here about what to discuss. And this is disgusting, I should say. The military is being challenged with the expulsion of transgender military troops. The U.S. military is currently facing legal challenges regarding the expulsion of transgender troops. On January 27th, 25, President issued Executive Order 14183, titled Prioritizing Military Experience and Readiness, which effectively bans transgender individuals from serving in the military. The policy has been met with significant legal opposition, notably on March 18th, which is just this last week, right? District Judge Ann Reyes, she's probably Hispanic and probably much to the chagrin, and she's female. I mean, it's a very prejudicial thing to say, but what the heck, As the disclaimer says here, we're entitled to our opinions. Both of you, we all are entitled to our opinions here, so share them freely. But Judge Anna C. Reyes issued a preliminary injunction blocking the enforcement of the ban, stating that it likely violates constitutional rights and is soaked in animus. And animus, I wanted to get animus is hateful, untruthful BS. I didn't cuss. I just said that's a couple letters there. BS.
You're okay.
I'm okay. And that's what the judge said it was. So I think, I'm in love with Anna Reyes. In response, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announced plans to appeal the ruling, expressing confidence that the administration will ultimately prevail. Advocacy groups such as the GLBTQ Legal Advocates and Defenders of GLAAD and the National Center for Lesbian Rights, the NCLR, have filed lawsuits challenging the ban, arguing that it discriminates against transgender service members and violates their constitutional rights. As of now, the enforcement of transgender military ban is halted due to the court's injunction, but the situation remains fluid as legal proceedings continue. Do we have any opinions on this? I might start with Tricia.
Oh my goodness.
Where to begin?
I'm tired, Greg. I'm tired. It's the hatred directed towards my community, and all we want to do is live. All we want to do is live. And I like it. Senator Tammy Duckworth has a quote, and I'm not going to get it spot on, but she's a veteran senator from Illinois who lost both of her legs, I believe, in a helicopter crash. And she has a quote about, when I was laying there waiting to be rescued, I didn't care if I got help from a trans person. I didn't care. I just needed someone to come for me. And I'm not aware of a single case of a transgender service member not serving honorably. And I don't understand. I don't understand the hatred. I just don't. We're not hurting anyone.
I think back to our the presidential campaigns, and the vice president was Wells. What was
Waltz?
Tim Walz.
Yeah.
And one of the most powerful things he said is just leave us alone.
Exactly.
Like, what does it matter? Get off it. Leave us alone. it's kind of like live and let live. It doesn't affect you, but somehow you feel an entitlement to have a moral judgment on it. So,
well, and these are people that want to serve. These are people who want to provide a service most of us would not volunteer for.
That's a very good point.
And similarly, at Friendship Shelter, we have wonderful staff. We are greatly enhanced by staff who are transgender, who are gender fluid, who have other experiences, and who have the lived experience to help the people we're helping. Same in the military. These are folks that are ambassadors for our country and our society out in the world, as well as serving our country through their military service. I don't understand why we would say no to anyone who wants to do that.
Or why it matters.
Yeah.
Wow.
I hear people say, well, I don't understand it. And I transitioned when I was 48 years old. So I lived, like pretending to be a guy. I never was. I never felt like it. Guys don't make sense to me. They don't make sense. And like, I love them. I understand things about them, but I never understood them. And the truth is, I don't have to understand them to love and embrace them. Like, the men in my life are amazing and wonderful. And, again, a lot of the way they think is like, no, I don't understand that because I'm not that. And that's okay. We don't have to understand everything and everyone. But I do think, just out of a sense of decency, we talk about freedom. Let's give people the freedom to live their lives.
I think that I do think it's important that many people understand why the reasons and the conditions that provoke someone to want to do a transition, because what they see or what they're often told is not accurate or truthful. And often with bad intentions, I feel. Myself included, I think I didn't really understand trans. I thought I did, which is the scariest thing. But I didn't realize that there was such a number of people that were trans, because I do think it's like 99% of them you don't know, you don't see. It's not apparent. But that 1% is what you judge everyone to be like. I always go back to my old thing with, if you see a guy with a bad toupee, you think all the toupees are bad and you'll sponsor him. But no, there's a million guys out there with toupees that you would never know. But you're going to judge people with toupees by that one person. The same goes for gay. You see the flamboyant gays at the Pride Festival, or the dykes on bikes that have electrical tape on their their body parts, and you think, oh, that's what they're all like. No, that's so untruthful, and those misconceptions. I think it's important that if we can share some insight with that, so people understand it better.
Well, the way we gain that insight is by being alongside people at the workplace. It's having people serving in the military who are transgender and have lived that experience can just by their being there help people understand better, and that lifts us all.
Yeah, that personal experience is a big thing, and
absolutely.
And that the more that we can share of our life stories and help other people understand, I think the better.
Absolutely.
Something eluded me there just for a minute. It was about, for myself being prejudiced, I think there was this misunderstanding that often people do it because it's on a whim, and they don't really. It's like, I was like Pete Buttigieg said about abortion. I can't imagine someone in their 8th or 9th month just deciding, oh, I think I'll get an abortion. I think that it is a heartfelt conversation between people in their lives that are important and their physician. And that's how they make that decision. And it's not, and I think that's the same for people that transition. It's not an easy, right?
It's not easy.
And the sad thing is that you can go through your life not being honest with yourself. And that in itself is really sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last time Tricia was on fairly recently, and we discussed housing, and I remember having a conversation with you, Dawn, about housing and how it works. And there's, speaking of misunderstandings, I'm going to segue from the misunderstanding of transgender to the misunderstanding of homeless. And I think there is a tremendous misunderstanding. And there was a conversation earlier today about when you work on a homeless or work with a person, it's not just one faceted, it's multiple facets that bring success. And they kind of have to work in orchestration. Does anyone want to expand on that, how that works?
Well, I think the connection, the segue is that homelessness is an emergency for the person who's experiencing it. And it's more likely to be experienced by people who are disadvantaged in our society. Trans people have a substantially larger chance of being homeless, particularly trans youth.
And gays.
Than you or I would have, than gays would have, than women would have. But the more misunderstood a population is, the more likely that they find themselves in homelessness. And that's really about not so much, I believe strongly that the number one reason we have homelessness is the lack of income and the lack of affordability of housing. It's a money issue. It's a problem of being able to pay for your housing. Because any other circumstance you have that might seem to contribute to your homelessness is more often experienced by people who are not homeless. We all know people who are housed who have mental health challenges. We all know people who have addiction issues that are housed, on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
But when you lose your housing or you lose the ability to pay for housing, and you are also disadvantaged, it's harder to climb back out of that homelessness. Fewer people willing to help you. You may also have broken connections within your family and your support system. And so that all connects to it. So homelessness is a very complicated issue, but at its root,
yes,
it is there housing available for that person, and how quickly can we get them back?
The one word you used was emergency. And I think that, I guess I wanted you to expand on that, because I feel like a lot of people are in that situation, and it's an emergency situation.
It can take a long time, so it stops feeling like an emergency. But it is the single largest problem. Anyone facing homelessness, their single largest problem is that they are homeless. Everything else will improve if we can find a stable place for them to be that's safe, where they can let their guard down, where they can relax, where they can get a good night's sleep, where they can know they have support. Everything else gets better when we solve that problem.
And one of the things we talk about a lot working with homeless populations is trauma-informed care.
Yep.
And in some cases, it's kind of become a buzzword. We just say that. But that's unfortunate, because that is such a key piece of this work. The people we serve, homeless populations, have been through a lot. They don't just wake up one morning and, oh, I don't feel like paying my rent today. That doesn't happen. These are people who have grown up in very frequently experiencing poverty, experiencing housing insecurity, experiencing violence in their homes or on the streets. And what trauma does, and I won't bore you with all the neuroscientists, one, because I'm not a neuroscientist, but I'd love to, like, if I could go back and get a PhD, I think this is what I would do. But the science of what trauma does to our brains, the limbic system, the amygdala, it controls fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses. It's a very primitive part of the brain that, you see that mountain lion and it's growling at you. you're going to do whatever it takes. This is a crisis. I have to survive this moment. Nothing else matters right now if I don't survive this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And when people experience, persistent trauma in their lives, their brain is wired. It becomes hardwired into that mentality of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And every moment is about trying to survive this moment. And so I'm going to pull out all the stops to survive right now,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of, I'm not even able to think about the consequences for tomorrow. So when we're serving homeless and traumatized populations, they are in survival mode 24/7.
I want to ask about the survival mode and how quickly you can get into that mode.
Mm-hmm.
Say, and let me give you, say there's this single guy or single gal, and they have a job that pays the bills and keeps them going, and they have some good moments in their life. And on the way to work one morning, they have a car accident. They wind up in the hospital. Their insurance is not covering it. They get out of the hospital. They're in debt. They can't work.
They maybe had no sick leave, so they also lost their income. Yep.
They lost everything.
Yep.
And then they're being evicted, and within, say, 2 months, they're on the street. And that survival mode, does that kick in right away? I mean,
Well, I think we have to remember how many traumas happen when you're on the street. So there's violence on the street. There's, if you're living in your car gets broken into, all of a sudden you've lost more things.
Yeah.
You can be the victim of violence on the street. And then there's just the traumatizing fear. It doesn't always have to be, we think of trauma and we're privileged people. So we think of, really.
The mailman didn't deliver my mail today.
We also think of abrupt things like somebody hit me in the face or beat me up. But it can be traumatizing to the way you're treated on the street. It's traumatizing that every day you have to figure out where you're going to go to the bathroom. Who's going to let you use a restroom? That's traumatizing. Traumatizing maybe small t instead of large t, but day after day after day, I don't know where I'm going to go to the bathroom. I don't know where I'm getting food. I don't know how to take a shower. I can't do my laundry. All of that is traumatizing. So, but I'm just remembering a woman that I know who actually is one of our employees now, was living in a parking lot here in Laguna Beach, and we were aware of her when she was experiencing homelessness, and we were aware of her, hearing about her as not a very pleasant person, kind of very quick to snap at you. Very angry and yelling at her peers. Well, she now works for us. So obviously that's not the woman we know today. But what she will tell you is, I had been traumatized so many times. I had been physically abused so many times. That mean lady was my defense system.
Oh,
no one was going to mess with that mean lady.
Yeah.
That mean lady made it easier for me to sleep at night because I knew people were afraid of me and weren't going to mess with me. So I think that's what we have to remember about how complex this is and how quickly we become these things in our own lives.
So the answer there is it can be a very quick transition from this person who was driving to work and things seemed okay. Within a couple of months, they're on the street and
I just saw a study this past week, and we know that the main thing that happens when people become homeless is they lost their housing. But drilling back is why they lose their housing is almost always a personal loss. Maybe somebody died, maybe a relationship broke up, maybe a roommate situation broke down, a loss of a job. There's almost always a loss there that precedes that loss of housing.
And, kind of why me,
100%. And if you have grown up, as Trish said, in poverty, and you've grown up around violence, it's not just why me, it's of course me. Here it goes again. And one more failure, one more thing. I must not be worth this. I must not be worthy. It can really become a very, very difficult psychological cycle.
So I have two questions. The first is what number, in comparison, it's a judgment call, but a guess. Mm-hmm. How many are in this emergency situation through a series of events that just fate dropped at their door? and not through any misguided thing, but an accident, or how many get stuck in that position because they have no savings, they have no family, and they're good people. They get good educations, and what do you think?
Well, I mean, you're getting into a judgment call that I would just take a little issue with, and I would say that no matter what your actions are and what might have happened, most people don't end up homeless as a result of mistakes they make. And so I would say that everybody we see on the street has been a victim of something, some sort of circumstance, whether they may have had conditions or actions that contributed to it. Most people who would have had a similar background would not have ended up homeless. So it really is a matter of bad luck and usually systemic long-term disadvantage that causes this.
Okay.
It's a lot. It's a lot of bad luck, and I liked, Dawn, your comment about it's not so much why me as of course me. And one of the things, because I started doing this work at a place called Covenant House, Missouri, and we had a measure of success was we don't want to just get people and like we can house them for 30 days or 3 months or maybe 2 years, and then they go back to what they came from. We want them to discharge to stable housing, and that was our measure of success, was discharge to stable housing. And I wasn't doing career services work yet. It was just working, more like case management, like all the wraparound services.
Yep.
And it was so tough because none of them had any money.
Exactly.
And like even in St. Louis, where I broke into this work, even in St. Louis, you have to have money to live.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, okay, if you want to discharge these young people to stable housing, of course we do. They need money. Let's help them find jobs. And then it quickly turned into, okay, we also need to help them find good jobs.
Right.
One of the things I love to say when I'm engaging that work is the people we serve deserve the same good things that we do from their jobs, paid time off and so on. But I'm digressing a little bit, but back to that point of it. It's not why me, it's of course me.
So many things, so many no's in your life where you stop believing in it.
When I worked at Doorways in St. Louis, I walked into we had this area called the Welcome Center, which was sort of like the lobby. And I liked that we called it the Welcome Center. That's the feel of Doorways. It's a cool place. But I walked into the Welcome Center, and this man I was serving was out there with his therapist. And I heard her say to him, "Hey, would you like to tell Trisha what you just told me?" And he said, "Absolutely. I would love to tell her." So he came up and he said, "Trisha, what we love about you is you make us feel like we matter." And that is the biggest challenge in this work, is teaching people that, no, not of course you, not of course me. You deserve good things, just like I do. And when, being specific to career services, no, I don't want to just get you a job as a bagger at the local grocery store for 19 hours a week, because if they gave you 20, they'd have to give you insurance, and they don't want to do that at $12.75 an hour. Like, I could do that all day long and my numbers would look great. Look at all these people that Trisha got hired, as if I get them hired. They do it. I support them. But no, it's the living wage jobs. It's the insurance, the PTO, and we have professional jobs. We get paid time off if we go to the doctor. If you're working in fast food, you probably don't get that. No. And there's a good chance you don't have insurance. A doctor visit can be devastating.
This is a very cynical look at business and employment. And I think the minimum wage at $7.25 is obscene. But what often businesses take into consideration, the bigger ones, the chain, the big boxes, is, and I'm projecting here, I'm offering an opinion. They can look at it and say, well, if we keep the wage down here, they're eligible for assistance, and essentially we'll keep it there and let them get their assistance from other programs. And it saves the company money and the people qualify for it. And in a way, it's supplementing the wages for that corporation because they don't have to pay them. But if there were a minimum wage that was, say, $15 or $20, and it was sufficient enough that people didn't need to welfare those other programs, then it would make more sense.
The minimum wage in California is $16.50 an hour.
Finally, yeah.
And but the federal minimum wage is still $7.25. You're right. And so we end up in this inequity of our own local economy as well as this. But the housing wage, to get someone in housing in Orange County in particular, is upwards of $35.
Now, I don't understand that. Well, first of all, if you're just tuning in, this is Craig on KXFM 104.7 Rainbow Radio. Here I'm with Dawn and Tricia. Dawn from the Friendship Shelter, and Tricia advocating her own good spirits and good as a good resource in the community. Here today, we're having a conversation about all things, including mental health and I guess everything that comes with it, and housing and all the things in between. I thought I'd get that out there. Now, back to what you were saying.
So in terms of really people fully being able to support their own housing without a subsidy, and that is our goal, 40% of the people that leave our programs are paying for their housing on their own.
So when you threw that $30 number out there, can you explain how that works?
So that's the cost in Orange County to rent a 1-bedroom apartment and have your rent be only 30% of your total income. Because HUD standards show that we need our income to support things other than housing, and so our housing should never consume more than 30% of our income. That's the goal.
Okay.
We realize many people do not achieve that goal. Many people exceed that goal voluntarily. They just want nicer housing, and so they use more of their income.
More of a priority.
But the living wage is around $26 an hour, and that includes maybe you have a roommate, maybe you have other help with that housing. But the housing wage is the metric we like to put forward to remind people that housing is expensive, too expensive in our communities. We don't have enough affordable housing. We don't have enough ability for people to live in the communities where they work.
I don't understand that dynamic when there's a demand for affordable housing. There's a high demand for it.
Until it's in your neighborhood.
But no one, the developers that have money, that no one's building it. Is there no money in it for them? I don't think so. I think, it's I don't get it.
We have affordable housing being proposed right now here in Laguna Beach at the site of the Neighborhood Congregational Church.
I'm aware of that.
And
but almost like a drop in the bucket. No.
Well,
I don't want to dismiss something that's positive and good.
Yeah.
But
I think you're asking why don't more people do it? It's been years already of planning and listening to community and trying to put together the complicated
but Dawn,
financial package.
When I say that, I don't mean why. I mean, why aren't developers that are building these high dollar, very expensive communities, why isn't a developer saying, listen, I could build a high dollar community that will house 500 people, or I can build a low income facility that will house 5,000 or 10,000 because there's such a high demand. Right. And I would make more money in the numbers because there's a much greater population that would be renting those. But no one builds them.
Yeah, and it's because it takes a lot longer and is more complicated because you have to go through the entitlement process. You have to get the neighborhood on board. You typically get, especially in a community that has resources, multiple objections to the site. And so you go through legal challenges, you go through city council meeting after city council meeting. It's hard to get this stuff done, but there is money for it.
So you think there is commercial, well, I don't mean public money, but I mean some private investor to me that if they they're building all these expensive homes, they spend money going before city councils. They talk about traffic impact and parking and all that crap.
Yeah.
And yet they spend all that money. And it seems so. This is my pipe dream. California City was a dream from a developer, in the 70s, and it's still there. The population's about 18 or 20,000. The mayor is a construction guy. He believes in construction, and so I think if we could just start an artist colony there, and people could, and there was an easy commute, like a high-speed commuting, you could fill that whole community up, and you could get 30,000 homes in there in a short while, and use tiny homes.
Yeah. We look for all these solutions, and I think the answer always is you push on all the levers at once.
Okay.
Here we develop some housing. We have 4 dedicated housing sites that Friendship Shelter operates, and we understand in Orange County that one of the things is you have to right size it for that community. You can't go into a small community like Laguna Beach and propose 300 units. I mean, there's no other 300 unit apartment building anywhere near Laguna Beach. That's not going to fly with the community. It's going to very much stigmatize that site because it's not going to fit into the community. Everyone's going to know everyone that lives there is in affordable housing, whereas our communities are 17, 18 units, 20 units. And they fit right into their communities.
Well, I think that's great.
Yeah,
and to figure that all out.
So it takes a lot, but there are wonderful affordable housing companies that do this work. The Neighborhood Church Project has a great developer-related companies that's working on that. So there are good companies that do both, and Related is one that does private market as well as affordable. We have great support from the shop-offs, Bill and Cindy shop-off, and I know when they do their market rate communities, they put affordable units within their project. So that does happen. It does happen. It's hard to find those units when they're available. We do better in our system because we use a process called coordinated entry. So when an affordable housing unit comes up, it is doled out to the homeless population in a systematic way that takes their needs into account and makes sure that it's fair. So we do try to do a better job at that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, developing affordable housing is hard.
I know you're not as familiar with LA and some of the, but there must be some similarities.
Yep.
And the situation where there's just tens of thousands of people that are homeless. I think the number I heard was 70 in LA County. I'm not sure. That that is something that to me is daunting.
Terribly daunting.
Terribly daunting.
I'm grateful for so many reasons to be operating an organization that focuses on South Orange County because their numbers are a lot more actionable here. But the solution is the same. It's more affordable housing. It's ways to get people into housing as quickly as possible, taking a housing first approach so that people get into housing and then can address other problems in their lives. Here in South Orange County, we have about 700 people in our point in time count compared to 70,000 number that you're hearing from LA. The answers are the same, much, much harder to wrap your arms around.
And then the equity and employment too, and career services. Well, it's like we have to.
I want to segue into that because I want to say we're talking about housing and say I just tuned in. Well, can't they just go get a job? Why do they need housing first? Get a job first. You earn your house and all that stuff. So I want to address the dynamics of how it actually works as opposed to what someone might, I think it's important to say, because I would venture to say a great number of people think, well, you got to get a job first, and where are you going to shave?
Where are you going to get?
Where are you going to put on some clean clothes so you can show up for work?
What address are you putting on your application?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Or do you have a working phone? How do you find a job?
And I want Tricia to address that because she has a world of experience and I think understands the dynamics of what those components are.
So I'm going to throw out just a kind of rhetorical question here. For the people listening, those of us who do have employment that pays that living wage or that housing wage, that offers the benefits, the insurance, and all of those good things that we should all get from our employment. Those of us, how many of us didn't sleep well and maybe have called into work and used one of those PTO days because we didn't sleep well? And I'm going to speculate that it's all of us. So if it's okay for me to call in and say, hey, I'm just going to take a PTO day, I just don't feel really good today, then let's think about that person who's, like my experience comes from St. Louis, Missouri. It's a lot colder here. I'm still trying to get a grasp on this concept of wearing a down jacket when it's 69 degrees. I'm working on it. I look forward to that being the norm in my life. It's wonderful here. But no, I worked with a young lady, and she was living out of a car outside the shelter because we were full. We didn't have any beds. She was living in a car in January in St. Louis. It was cold. And, we could run out with blankets and hot chocolate, and she could come in and eat at the shelter. She could take showers in the morning and so on. So she was in a better position than a lot of the people we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
And she is the only human being I have ever seen obtain and maintain employment while homeless. And she had a lot more support. So the whole housing first thing, it's so, there's so many angles we can take with this because, like if we go back however many years to where, well, if you get sober, we'll help you with housing. Okay, I want to see you work a 12-step program while you're living in the streets. I want to see it. I want to see you get sober and address your mental health while living in the streets. Or we'll help you when you get a job. If you're living in the streets,
not a realistic expectation.
Good chance your phone's not working or it got stolen. A huge percent, like it's amazing how many people their IDs get stolen. Mm-hmm. So they get to the shelter and they have no ID. And especially when COVID started, getting a social security card was almost impossible. And there are just, it's not a reasonable demand to say, get sober, get a job. No, we house you first.
Mm-hmm.
And we make sure you're safe. We feed you. We address the basic needs. Then we come in with mental health care. Then we do all of those things, and that's what it takes. And, as a professional woman, I have a lot of support in my life. I do. Now, it comes from having the job, but if you take all that away, I couldn't do it. I don't think any of us
I think it's
could.
important to understand, too, the population we're serving in South Orange County. We saw 984 unique people last year. 88% of them had a disabling condition.
Yeah.
43% of them were 55 years or older. 65% of them were chronically homeless, meaning they've had that disabling condition and had been homeless for more than a year. So we're not talking about someone who broke up with their girlfriend on Friday and lived in their car over the weekend. We're talking about someone who's been on the street for a long time, usually with multiple disabling conditions. They're already hard to find a job for and hard to support through employment, not impossible, but hard. And if they are living on the street or even in a shelter, it just makes it that much harder.
Absolutely.
But let me understand this. I feel from what I'm hearing here, that the first step is provide a place for them to live, for this homeless person, for a place to live. But when you put them in there, you can't just expect them, okay, you're cured.
No,
absolutely not.
That's when the work begins.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they've come to the doctor's office and now the work begins. And
that's so important. I'm glad you pointed that out, because I think a lot of people think when we talk about housing first that it's housing only, that we're just interested in solving the problem of homelessness. So we find you an apartment and a subsidy. Good luck. No, we have supportive services that wrap around those people to help continually provide services while they're housed.
Or it's not going to work.
Or it's not going to work, but it does work. Last year, and this is a statistic that is so good that I almost don't want to share it, because we hit a number last year that is just mind-blowing to me. We may not hit it next year, but last year, 100% of the people in our housing stayed housed.
Wow.
Now, we always hover in the high 90s. We hit 100% in 2024.
Was there any
But
recognition did Stu News write an article about it or anything?
We just ran these numbers recently, but 99, 100, 98, whatever it's been over the last several years. Last year, it was 100%. The point is, with supportive services, with people on board with you once you're housed to help you continue in a positive trajectory. These are very, very successful programs, and they do permanently end homelessness. So they really work.
One thing that is coming to mind also, like with the employment thing, they just don't want to work. They just don't want to work. When I started doing the career services work, I would approach employers because to me, a big part of it is build a relationship with the employer and get them coming in. And as we were doing that, I actually want to tell you some of the success stories. I worked with a young man who came in to the emergency shelter at Covenant House, Missouri, and he got into a program called Launch Code. And Launch Code is, I don't know if that's nationwide or just a St. Louis thing, but it's a free program where you learn like programming languages. I don't even know the names of the languages. And that young man worked really hard and he graduated from that program. We were able to introduce him to, I think it's okay to say the name of the company, Worldwide Technologies, which is really big. Like I think their headquarters is St. Louis. And they hired him as a software developer or application developer. And you know what, Craig? 3 weeks later, I got a call from Worldwide, said, we need another Joe Smith, obviously making up that name. We need another one. Get me another one.
Wow.
I built a relationship with Mercy Health Systems in St. Louis, and we placed some people at Mercy, and they called us back and said, Tricia, need another Joe Smith. Do
you think part of that process is helping them discover what their talent might be and what their interests are, and introducing them to opportunities?
Definitely, but I think the really key point is,
yes,
when the employers come and work with us, like DEI means definitely earned it. Okay, definitely earned it. And
I wanted to talk about that in length too, but
when we build those relationships with the employee, like BJC Health Systems in Missouri, a huge health system. I had a young lady come to me. She was working at McDonald's for $9 an hour. It's a few years ago, but not long ago. 40 hours a week for 18 months.
Yes.
And she became homeless because nobody can live on $9 an hour. So the stereotype, did she want to work? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And you know what? When I introduced her to BJC, they were like, oh my God, she shows up to work. We like her. And they hired her. And, you know, I don't always get all that, but 9 months later, I was hearing conversation about, you know, we want her in management. And again, they're calling me. Well, can we have another Jane Smith? You know, we want more of the. So
you're saying some of them have a real strong work ethic and a real sense of pride, but they just haven't found perhaps that path that really will benefit them.
Right.
You know, if you're working at McDonald's 40 hours a week, you have no time.
You're doomed. You're doomed.
Yeah. Look anywhere else, you know.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you in 10 years you might be a manager. Well, yeah, okay. There you go.
Yeah. And it is important to note as well the group that is disabled and may never work full time again.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that will need ongoing help, but income too. We have a program called SOAR where we help people apply for their Social Security disability benefits. And our team has a 71% success rate in getting their Social Security benefits, which is huge because that income can be just transformational for a person, particularly if they originally applied years ago because they get a lump sum of back pay as well, which can be, they can buy a trailer
I'm
and live in
familiar
a
with
trailer park, all of that. Yeah.
My mother had struggled for many years after the passing of my dad, and it was like 10 years on, maybe 11. And someone said, your father, Craig, was a veteran, and your mom's probably entitled to some benefits.
Survivor benefits, yes.
And so I said, well, I can tackle that. I've got people got their green cards to become get their green cards, which is a big process too. Normally they hire attorneys like that. Yeah. So I said, I'm good with paperwork. So I did.
Yeah.
And I probably spent 2 months and millions of questions to my mother. They want to make sure she didn't cohabitate or get remarried, not tell anyone or live with someone. And finally, in frustration, she goes, I don't know if that matters to anyone, but I never had sex with anyone but your father. And I said, well, I'm going to tell him that.
There you go.
and I did. I think they thought I was nuts. But long story short, it was a daunting task. And I can't imagine someone who's on the street without a home trying to get the proper paperwork and understand the complexities of applying for their benefits. And they don't get them. So they sit there. And she got a nice lump sum, and she got caught up on things, and she deserved it. And I also learned a great deal about my father that I didn't know about his military service. So it was a good step, but I getting sidetracked here. But the point is that I understand how difficult it is to, and rightfully so, they got to sort out who it deserves and who doesn't. And, so it is a bit of a complex situation.
But we began this conversation talking about the benefit of learning about people different than us and how that can change. And I think Trish told a great story about employment, where an employer learns, wow, these people that are coming from this program could really help my company succeed. And we see the same thing with applying for benefits. We also see the same thing in housing. Landlords who are reluctant, they don't know how to take a voucher. They don't understand what that would be. What would that be if I took a voucher? Well, our housing locator sits with them, explains to them, walks them through their first voucher. And we're calling, just like your employer calling, the landlord's calling, going, I have 2 more units open. Do you have anyone who needs them? Because now they have a tenant, and the voucher's paying the majority of that rent on time every month. If they have a problem or a concern with that tenant, they have someone to call. Our support services people can come and help. Any landlord with in a large complex is going to tell you they have plenty of people with behavioral problems.
And you have 100% success rate.
And we're going to keep them in that housing. We keep them in the housing partly because the landlords are happy. And the landlords are happy because we do what we say we're going to do. And we do help that person stay stable.
You spoke of some people, and I wanted to go back to that a little bit, that just unfortunately they need to be institutionalized. They're a hazard to themselves and the community. They can't really, maybe that's not the right thing to say, hazard, but they need to be and there's a lot of, the reason I bring that up, I think there's a lot of people that think that that's most of them.
Yeah.
And isn't,
very, very rare.
That's what I say. Yeah.
We have a lot of people who struggle in a lot of ways, but it's extremely rare that someone needs to be quote unquote institutionalized or kept away from the rest of society. More likely they need support so that they can live in the community safely.
I kind of like that you kind of gently pushed back on some of my employment stuff, and you started talking about SOAR.
Well, they're both important.
They're both, they're both important. Exactly.
Yeah. Not intended as a pushback.
No, it was a very, you brought up a good point though, because like my emphasis, like my niche is doing the career work. And like that's not always the solution, right? But
well, it can't succeed without it, but it's
right. But like whenever it can be, you want it to be.
Absolutely.
And it's frequently the solution. But the people we're serving, these people are not threats to society.
No.
These people, like maybe they're not quote unquote contributing as, our capitalist society defines contribution, but they're valuable, priceless people. And, we pay for Social Security. We pay for it. It's our money, and it's there to support us when we need it. And
yeah, it's our tax dollars at work. So
It is.
when we need
It
it, we
is.
need it. Yeah, I think it's employment brings an individual. It's ideal because it brings an individual so much more than just the income. It also brings community. It brings
Yes.
stability. It fills your days. It decreases isolation. It's important for lots of reasons.
We're going to continue this conversation after the top of the hour here. I have a song that Dawn suggested, and I can speak for itself, and then we'll have the news and the weather, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
What would you do if I sang out of tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song. I will try not to sing out of key. Yeah. Oh, baby, all I need is my love. I say I'm gonna get What do I do when my love is away?
Does it worry you to be alone?
No, no. How do I feel at the end of the day?
Are you sad 'cause you're on your own?
I tell you, don't even say it no more. Gonna get down on my way. I need someone to love.
Could it be anybody?
All I need is someone to love. That's just where I'm going, yeah. Someone to make it without breath. Oh, I'm gonna keep on trying. I'm gonna keep on trying. I'm certain it happens all the time, yeah.
What do you see when you turn out the light?
I can't tell you, but it sure feels like madness. Don't you know I'm gonna make it without breath? I promised myself I'd get back. Said I'm gonna try it with a two.
KXRN LP, Laguna Niguel, Laguna Beach. KXFM on 104.7, KXFMradio.org.
Hey there, what's up, Laguna? I'm Janice Murray here with news. City Council voted unanimously last week to expand the use of the Laguna Beach Community and Recreation Center, formerly the St. Catherine of Siena School. Possibilities discussed include converting former classrooms into a public fitness center, then converting all or part of a grassy field into 65 new parking spaces on a gravel lot. All could be public drop-in facilities for parents to use while their children are attending recreation recreational programs and the center's many summer camps. The property bought by the city holds about 39,000 square feet of indoor space, and all these ideas face more council discussion. I'm Janice Murray with news for KXFM.
Jason Feddy here on the all-new KXFM, Laguna's community radio. I could not be happier to be back on the team every weekday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. with a new show, The Feddy Factor. Well, I say new, it's pretty much, the same old thing. Anyway, loads of music. Meet your neighbours here on the air. Congratulations to us and congratulations to you. Laguna's radio is back on KXFM. Tune in, turn on. It's the heart of Laguna Beach.
Hi, this is KXFM meteorologist Dave Murray. The amazing Laguna Beach weather is still in full force as we go through the weekend on this Sunday, and the early clouds and fog right along the coast quickly gives up to sunshine. This is another sunny day. 65 at the beach, 66 the mountaintop, the canyon, 65. Tonight, nice evening, clear skies. Evening temperatures will drop into the upper 50s, 51 for the overnight low. Monday, early clouds. But again, plenty of sunshine. It's warmer on Monday. That's been on the schedule for a while, 72 degrees. About the same story on Tuesday, 68. Could see a couple of rain showers next weekend, but it's just a maybe at this point. That's my forecast. I'm meteorologist Dave Murray. Tune in, turn on to KXFM 104.7, Laguna's community radio.
This disclaimer is a statement notifying listening audiences that any opinions expressed on our shows are not representative of Laguna Radio, Inc., its management, or its board of directors.
Hey, we're back. 72 degrees tomorrow, Monday. That is beach weather. We are blessed here in Laguna Beach. I am here with Tricia and Dawn, and we've been talking about many things, many topics, and I know we're eager to get back to some things that we were discussing before the hour. Dawn is the director of the Friendship Shelter. I'm not drinking. I'm just tripping on my coffee. And Tricia is creating opportunities for disadvantaged people, and that's quite a project in itself. So welcome back. And where did we leave off?
You're talking about income and housing.
Income and housing and all the things that go along with it.
Right.
Well, if you're just if you missed the first hour of our program, this whole program is being recorded and will be available as a podcast on rainbow-radio.org, rainbow-radio.org. I guess we've discussed, in my mind, we've discussed many things, and the dynamic of housing as a one first priority in putting someone on a path to sustain themselves, I guess. And how the mechanics of that often work, and how important it is that they need to work in orchestration. One can't go hand in hand. They must go hand in hand. They can't go for the greatest number of success. And as an attribute to that is Dawn's success with 100% no drawbacks.
100% of retention in our housing. So people that we can get housed, stay housed.
I understand that because my older brother was in law enforcement, and he got involved in housing and an outreach for troubled youth to go to a camp, and everyone thinks, oh, it's one of those military camps. No, my brother had a brilliant idea that for them to succeed when they get back into the world, they needed more than just a military attitude. They needed psychological help often. They needed to deal with their issues, and he had such a low recidivism. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Recidivism.
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 English major here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In other words, the youth that graduated the program, and it was a 9-month program, but the youth that graduated did not it was like 88% did not recommit, and the general number was around 30. And so he got some recognition with that on national level, and that speaks to what we're talking about here today. That it is the right approach is the right approach, and you have to understand it. It's not just the shotgun effect, and you can't just expect everything to come together, and that's important. And I also want to say that the Friendship Shelter is more than just shelter.
It is, yes, and it's a constantly heard misconception that we are that shelter on Coast Highway, and maybe we have something to do with that other shelter on Canyon Road. We actually operate the city's shelter on Canyon Road as well as our flagship shelter on Coast Highway. But our largest program is our housing program. So we have 330 people in our housing program. We have 4 dedicated sites, and then most of the people we support in housing are in what we call scattered sites, meaning they're out in the community in communities that we live into, apartment complexes, small apartment, fourplexes or duplexes or things like that, renting rooms, and we support them in their housing. We also have a regional care coordination program, meaning that we are in partnership with the County of Orange for the South County region in working with some of the hardest to serve the people who have the most complex cases. They've been involved in multiple systems within the county, the mental health system, the physical health system, the judicial system, and we're coming together with those providers to help solve the problem for those individuals. And finally, we operate the county's coordinated entry system. So I mentioned earlier that our county, all systems are required to take a systemic approach to housing people when we have these very too few housing resources. When they come available, we need to be sure the person who needs them the most is the next person that gets them. So we operate that data system for the county. So we also have a very system-wide approach as an organization to that work.
That assures that the money funded, that it's well spent where it's most needed.
It ensures all that we do is we don't make the judgment call of who deserves the next housing. That's very hard to do. But the county makes a decision. We collectively, as a Continuum of Care board, make a decision how we're going to prioritize that housing, and then we operate the data system that makes sure that is what we do.
And are you a 501c3?
We are. We're a 501c3 nonprofit.
If you're listening, they're not a for-profit company.
We are not a for-profit. We need your help. And
that's so important, I think,
In fact, if I could mention, we have our fundraiser coming up on June 26th.
Oh, do tell.
We do a couple of fundraisers a year. In the summer, in the June timeframe, we do a luncheon event we call Intersections, and that's first and foremost, well, we want to raise money for sure. But first and foremost, it's about educating the community about different issues that intersect with homelessness. So this year, we're going to focus on healthcare and homelessness. Homelessness is absolutely a public health problem. Homelessness makes any health issue that an individual has exponentially worse and harder to treat. And so we're excited to have a panel come in and talk about housing and homelessness June 26th at the Pacific Club. So our website will have information about that.
And what's the website? Friendship Shelter?
It's friendshipshelter.org. Lots there, lots of success stories from our clients. We are doing a little video campaign right now. You'll see on our social media where people talk about why Friendship Shelter is important to them. So all of those are up on that website. Our annual report is up on our website. So all this data, all of that is available at friendshipshelter.org. And follow us on Instagram, in LinkedIn, Facebook, to keep hearing these good news and all the stories.
Wow. Okay. I'm not sure where I want to go to from here. I did have another article that I think was the news, and if I can share that with you.
Sure.
And maybe have some conversation about. In the past 2 weeks, several significant legislative and political developments have impacted the LGBTQ plus rights, both in the United States and internationally. United States, Tennessee's anti-transgender bathroom bill. Tennessee's legislature passed a bill requiring educational institutions to designate bathrooms based on immutable biological sex. That is an issue in itself. Awaiting Governor Bill Lee's approval, the measure is part of a series targeting the transgender community of the state. And that's lovely Tennessee. I'm not going to spend my holidays this year in Tennessee. Kentucky, conversion therapy protections. Kentucky lawmakers passed a bill protecting conversion therapy practices and prohibiting Medicare funds for gender-affirming care, reversing previous executive orders that banned such therapies for minors. This bill awaits review for potential vetoes. This is all very not nice. Oh my. Connecticut's anti-discrimination bill in long-term care. Connecticut introduced a bill aiming to prevent discrimination against LGBTQ plus individuals in long-term care facilities. The proposed legislation would prohibit discriminatory actions based on sexuality, gender identity, or HIV status, and mandates cultural competency training for staff. So good on Connecticut. I love Connecticut. I think we should all go visit Connecticut. And international, Hungary's ban on pride events. Hungary's President Tamás Szolyak signed a law banning LGBTQ pride marches, allowing police to use, I'm thinking of our Tim, who was the vice presidential candidate?
Tim Walz.
Leave us alone. Hungary, leave us alone. Allowing police to use facial recognition to identify and find participants. So they're going to go to the parade and they're going to find out who's in it and they're going to find them. The move is condemned by human rights organizations and the European Union for restricting freedom of assembly. I decided I was going to give the news on the Rainbow Radio, and Rainbow's supposed to be about good things, rainbows and puppy dogs, and but there has to be a dose of realism. And it seems I had an awareness in the last 5 years doing this, just how much I have been ignorant about what's going on in the community. And I have to say this too, and I think I would like to expand on it if you have any thoughts, but it's our allies that really matter.
Craig, I think we talked about this before. I came to Missouri dealing with a health crisis, and we talked about that last time.
Yeah.
Did I say came to Missouri? I came to California from Missouri dealing with a health crisis, and I bought a plane ticket to fly to San Diego on November 5th, and then there was the election, and I got to San Diego, and I'm from a red state, and what I left behind in that red state was a really good job as director of career services at an amazing organization called Doorways. I ran a professional networking group called Employment Alliance. I created and ran that group that touched over 3,000 job seekers, that directly led to, in its first 6 months, it directly led to 21 job placements for disadvantaged job seekers. And I did that on a budget of, I think, $13,500 over 2 years. And I left behind 3 amazing adult children, a granddaughter who turns 2 next month, because Missouri is not a safe place for transgender people. And I love selling. I mean, I could be stuck in worse places than Southern California. Like, if you know me, I love it here. And I would go back to the snow, the tornadoes, all of it, to be with my children and granddaughter in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I would do it. And last check, I checked this before our last radio show. Missouri has 56 anti-transgender laws on the books for this year. And with their Republican supermajority, they'll pass. So I play the guitar. I like to do open mic nights. And at some point this year, it will become a crime for me to do an open mic night if a 17-year-old happens to be in the room. There is nothing sexual about me standing up with my guitar, playing Wish You Were Here, and nailing the solo. Side note, but, but you know, there's that, like,
what a great example.
Yeah. And
for
yeah.
what? For what?
For what? Because they're, I want to say if they're not last in teacher pay, they're close. You know, Missouri has huge problems. I'm not it.
So easy for us to forget that we're protected in California from the direct impact of these kinds of laws, that these don't typically happen here.
Right.
And so we don't hear these stories. I'm really glad you're here telling us.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. And I,
you're saying there's no allies in Missouri.
There are allies in Missouri. Obviously, there's.
I'm sure.
Like St. Louis Pride, my friend Jordan Braxton, if she by chance, is amazing human beings there, and amazing. But what do you do when, you know, you go to the Jefferson City, the capital of Missouri, to speak, and they're rude and they cut you off and they don't like. It's terrifying. And
I think that, you know, this is probably naive to say, but the laws don't always talk about the people who are there and supporting people. I mean, the fact that you were running a jobs program in St. Louis and successfully doing so just belies any thought that there's a problem with a person who happens to be transgender being out in the community and doing their work. I mean, obviously you were very successful at that, but these laws create this for people who don't have a person in their life who's transgender who can help them understand. It creates this barrier, this belief that there's something to be feared, that there's something to be avoided, that just simply isn't true.
Thank you. and I'll tell you something else about that career program. My motivation is I'm seeking to create that in South County because it's just my passion. It's what I do. My motivation is serving disadvantaged people because they deserve the same good things that we get from our employment. I am passionate about that. I will die on that hill. I don't want to, but I will if I have to. Here's the thing, though. If you want to come to me from a capitalist perspective or a conservative or people need to contribute to society, you know what? That work I did supported the economy in St. Louis.
Yep.
Because those people who got those jobs and kept those jobs, if those employers were doing me a favor by hiring my people, they would not have come back and said, Trisha, I need more. And they did often. We would do hiring events. Allied Universal Security. I'll shout them out. Sherry, you know you are. They would come and they would hire 18 people in an afternoon.
Wow.
And now it's entry-level security work, so it's not the end game when we're working with people. Also, some of those people weren't hired for entry level, though. They were interviewing for manager roles there, you know, and this work supports the economy. It increases the productivity of the workforce because it puts more productive workers into the workforce. So if you want to come at me with a capitalist agenda, you know what? We can work
Talk
together.
that language.
We can work together. Absolutely we can. It's when I'm doing career services, I'm not asking for favors. I'm asking you to give someone a chance, and I will support them. I will support you in making this work. and I'm saying you generically, obviously, you know, but when the employers are coming back and saying we want more people, so this is working. These people are definitely earning it. Definitely earning it.
Now, I was introduced a long time ago to the concept of a room with many doors, and I use it all the time for homelessness and housing. That if you want to solve the problem of people being on the beach, you go through one door. If you want to solve the compassion you have for that person you see, but it strikes me that you're talking about a room with many doors as well. You're talking about employers need to walk through that door because they need employees, and people who need a job need to walk through that door, and helping organizations. But you end up in the same room solving the same problem, which is lifting up your community and making sure that everyone can live there with happily and being able to afford being there.
Absolutely. So, and everybody has something valuable to offer.
Yeah. And we're better by, these ideas of what did you call DEI? I loved that.
Definitely earned
it. Love it.
Yes.
We're
I can't take credit for making that up. I wish I could.
It. I'm putting it on you for now on because I like it. There's moved in every federal funding to remove language about DEI in contracts. And I don't think that will change what's in the heart of organizations like ours, because we've learned that you don't do a program like the DEI programs we've done for the employees who are different from you. You do these programs because they make your organization better, because they make your organization stronger, because people have conversations and experiences with each other that help them lead to understanding and create a better culture for everyone. And I don't think that can go away by removing it from contracts, removing it from legislation, because enough of us have learned the benefit of having these values and living them in your organization every day. So I have hope. It's easy for me to have hope. I'm a cis white woman, but who has a job and a home. But I have hope that we've learned enough in these seasons when we were some organizations were pushed toward having these experiences, that we've learned enough of the benefit that the work won't go away.
From the capitalist standpoint with DEI, it makes good sense to have a DEI because it's not what people think it is. And so I got this, I want to make the comparison because I think it's too often confused with equal opportunity employment. It's confused with affirmative action, and they're very different. Affirmative action was mandated that if you were in a Black community or a Hispanic or Asian community, that you had to have so many people represented in, whether they were academically strong or not, you had to have a certain quota. And so if you were white and a non-minority, you were judged differently than the people that had the minority, and that became unconstitutional and it's withdrawn. So DEI showed up, and I think everyone is thinking that it is something that it's not. And I totally support DEI. DEI, let me say the key difference between affirmative action hiring quotas and DEI non-discrimination practices. Affirmative action programs and diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives are often mistakenly seen as interchangeable, but they serve fundamentally different purposes in the workplace. The primary distinction lies in how they approach representation and equality. So DEI affirmative action policies that use strict hiring quotas mandates a specific number of percentages that hires from underrepresented groups. These programs were originally designed to address historical inequalities by using a marginalized communities receive opportunities in employment. DEI, diversity, on the other hand, focuses on creating fair, non-discriminatory work practices environments for everyone. So what it says is, say you were handicapped in a wheelchair and you need some special accommodation, but we're not going to go to the ADA with this one. We're just, but you test really well, and you're extremely qualified, the most qualified candidate for this position. And then they wheel in their wheelchair, and the interviewer says, "Oh, we can't hire you." That's what it protects.
Yes.
Or they show up and they're black, and they say, "Oh, we can't." Or they show up and they're a guy that you can't decide whether it's a guy or a girl. So we don't want you. And, I interviewed for this in Arizona long ago, and the guy introduced me, everyone in the office, like I was hired, and I thought I was. And I think someone outed me, and I never got that call back, and because I think they didn't want me. And that's a long story. But
I'd like to, can I?
Yeah. Well, let me just finish the DEI. They're often confused. Many people can conflate affirmative action quotas with DEI programs because they both aim to increase diversity in the workplace. However, the key difference is that affirmative action quotas impose specific hiring targets, while DEI policies ensure that discrimination does not occur, allowing merit-based hiring decisions to be made in an equitable manner. And there's why we should support it, and Microsoft supports it. Yes.
Part of my work in career services is advocating for employees with employers.
Okay.
And opening doors. Never in my career have I gone to an employer and said, "I don't think this person can really do the job. Would you hire them anyway?" Never once have I done that. Never will I do that. That just sets everybody up for failure. Like that's a no-win. What I have done is gone to employers and said, "Hey, Joe Smith, here's his resume. He might not, he doesn't look really good on paper. I understand that. And this is why I think he's worth talking to." And so I will ask the employer, give this person a chance. But when I ask that, I am asking them to just talk to the person. And then they can assess whether they agree with me or not. They decide whether they hire the person. And not only that, if we want to be in this individualistic, capitalistic world, yes, I can possibly open that door for Joe Smith, but Joe has to go into that interview and sell himself. It is still up to the client to land the job. No one is giving them anything. They're not being given a single thing other than a chance. And I don't know a single employed person who got that job without somebody giving them a chance.
Wow.
But even letting people in the door to have that conversation without an advocate like you, I think what we've learned as an employer, I've learned is that there are barriers in my employment process that keep me from seeing the people I really should be seeing, who will be closer to the work we do and better understand our clients and their challenges, probably be better problem solvers because they've been problem solvers, as opposed to a highly privileged person who hasn't had many problems to solve. And so we've done things like look at every job and say, does that really need a degree? Sometimes you just mindlessly put that degree on there.
Yeah, I think that's so unfair. I mean, I shouldn't bring up, even Elon Musk questioned the process of hiring, that you might miss the most brilliant person because they don't look good on paper.
Right, exactly. So you pull that off, you stop doing unnecessary background checks. If children aren't involved, if there's not like real safety reasons, you make sure your background checks are looking only at things that would, if the person's working in finance, obviously you want to look for financial crimes. That makes sense. But if a person is going to be doing another job and may have had a past that included some law enforcement involvement, they might be the best person for that job. If you can look beyond that, we look at whether someone has told you that story during the interview, so that it's not a surprise when you see it on the job, on the background check. And if that is not related to their work, we can go ahead without having to make that a barrier. And that becomes really critical in terms of having a better workforce for the work that we do.
I absolutely love that. Yeah. I worked with a man, and he had just gotten out of prison. He did like 6 years in prison for selling marijuana, which seems excessive to me. That's another conversation. And he worked really hard. And we put a resume together. He had glorious letters of recommendation without a college degree, by the way.
Yeah.
He had created programs to feed people experiencing homelessness and like he was doing all of this work without any formal training. And then he got in trouble and went to prison. And he got out and we kept doing this work. He'd go, he'd nail the interview, and then the background check would come and they'd come back and say sorry. And finally, though, that didn't happen. And he got a really entry-level job at a really cool employer in St. Louis. And then all of a sudden, he's an assistant manager. And then all of a sudden, he's in college and he's still holding this job as an assistant manager. And I'm on the board of a small nonprofit that does housing services in St. Louis. And he reached out to me. He found me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, Tricia, I need a practicum. Can you connect me to Opportunity House?" Absolutely. And I don't know, where that landed. And, I didn't want to over-involve myself, but I made the introduction. And like justice involved people, like, yes, if someone went to prison for embezzlement, then maybe we don't want them to be our controller, right? And that's understandable.
But they might be a great cook in your meal program.
Exactly.
Reminds me of that.
Exactly. You know what? I'm going to tell you this. I am one of the people in my life did go to prison for counterfeiting money, and apparently he was pretty good at it. And you know what? That man today is living this amazing, productive life, and he's teaching people to not do stupid stuff. And more importantly, he's helping people be healthy and productive. So, yes, justice involved people do make huge turnarounds.
It reminds me of the joke that of all the staff I've ever hired, the worst one I hired was an Italian mechanic and a English cook. And in other words, they were saying all the stereotypes about all the different ethnic cultures and saying that but if you have the, how'd they say it? But then I hired an Italian cook and it was the best one. And I fired my mechanic who was Italian. In other words, you go through all the, I shouldn't have even brought it up, I guess, but it's about what is applicable, and it's kind of what it's saying, hire the person, based on their merits and what their strong points are.
We were talking about the Continuum of Care Board earlier, and I was part of a initiative to diversify the Continuum of Care Board. We realized that our board did not look like the people we were serving, and that there's a problem when we're making decisions about people who are experiencing homelessness. If there's no one in the room who has experienced homelessness and no one who can really speak to that that experience. And so we had a couple of great guides that were on the board, and then we just got much more intentional about recruiting for board members. And this is an election, so you can't, the votes are what the votes are, but we said what we wanted. We said we encourage people of color to apply. We encourage people with lived experience as homeless to apply. We encourage LGBTQ plus people to apply. And we got those applications by saying that, by working networks, and by being affirmative. The affirmative part of affirmative action is just taking some action to make sure that people know about the positions that are open and what you want. And we've done that at Friendship Shelter too. We have jobs where we advertise that experience being homeless would be helpful here. And that makes a difference.
One thing we kind of touched on about the homelessness and the causes was mental health. And I kind of wanted to touch on that again, because I think you brought up a big point for me I didn't realize, is that you get conditioned in your defense mechanism, which are instinctual, I assume. They're part of your DNA, fight or flight. And but they could bring on a whole host of mental health issues that individuals never had before or has a difficult time understanding. How much of a component is that in successful housing is dealing with some mental health issues?
Connecting people to housing who have mental health challenges. The key is ongoing support and insight. So we talk a lot about people who don't have full insight into the impact that their whatever condition they have may be a barrier to housing. And for some conditions where we really need the individual to be participating in their treatment, they need to be willing to see a doctor or a therapist about that. They need to access treatment for an addiction, perhaps. In those areas, it can be really helpful to hold a mirror up and talk about how those issues are barriers to housing for that individual. We try to look, we call our shelter work housing focused. And by that, we mean if that problem isn't in the way of you being housed, we'll help you if you want to help deal with that right now. But right now, your problem is that you're unhoused. So let's look at what's keeping you from being housed. But if you lost your housing because of behaviors related to your alcohol use, we're going to try to learn about that. And we're going to try to at least begin to think about that. And as soon as you're housed, if we see those behaviors continue, we're going to be holding that up as a mirror and say this, and not saying you're bad because you were drunk last night, but saying if you're drunk like you were last night, you are going to be in danger of losing your housing. These neighbors complained, whatever it is. Put that through the lens of housing as opposed to you're a bad person. And it changes the conversation. It's a less traumatizing conversation, and it's a problem-solving conversation.
It's just a fact.
Yeah. And the same with mental health behaviors that may emerge from mental health. Yeah, this is what you're dealing with. How can I help you? We don't want you to lose your housing. That's different than, you said some weird stuff last night, whatever.
Well, that's a huge motivation. I say for you to want to look in that mirror and try to understand yourself a little more, because housing is important. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think back to, I wanted to say allies, because I think all of this and explaining to a board perhaps that's never experienced what you're discussing before them is difficult. I think my brother experienced it with his facility up in Northern California. I think he had 130 wards, which is a big community, and he had to deal with 3 different county boards. It was supported by 3 different counties. So he had to work with 3 boards of supervisors. And he had a budget, and he did it for many years, and he retired. And when he retired, it lasted, 9 months, and they tore the building down. Beautiful building, by the way. Anyway, it didn't last very long because no one wanted to deal with the bureaucracy, and it got really difficult. But it made money. Apparently not enough money, and there were not enough people interested in it for it to continue. And it saved all these other counties when they'd have an award of the court. That cost them money to house them and put them in jail, and then maybe they're in probation. They have a probation officer, but if they go through this program and graduate in 9 months, their sentence of 5 years or 8 years or 10 years is suspended. They've gone through the program, and they get help. And so the counties, other counties other than the 3, loved it because it was a cost-saving measure. And in that component is having allies understand how that works, and capitalists understand how that works.
It sounds like the care court programs, and there's a veterans court, homeless court. There's a care court for drug and alcohol problems like addictions, and then there's a new mental health care court. So it's all about let's find an alternative placement for you that can help you deal with your issue. Successful.
We're going to take we'll come back with that in just a second. I have a song that I want to play that I saved especially. It's this week, Jesse Colin Young of the Youngbloods had a single many years ago. It's called Get Together. And he passed, and in honor of him and his music and the message that I think is topical, I think we're going to give it a short listen, and we'll be right back. This is Craig on KXFM 104.7 Radio, Rainbow Radio, and here's the song.
Love is but a song we sing, feels the way we die. You can make the mountains ring, or make the angels cry. Though the bird is on the wing, and you may not know why. Come on, people now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Some may come and some may go, we will surely pass. When the one that left us here returns for us at last, we are but a moment's sunlight fading in the grass. Come on, people now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Come on, people now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Come on, people now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, try to love one another right now.
That was, come on, get together. We need some love right now. And how appropriate. I had a thing here for Dawn I wanted to ask her about. She has 100% success, right?
We have 100% of the people we place in housing stayed in housing last year.
So I would think if I was in Los Angeles County or maybe San Diego or Riverside or whatever, I might look to Dawn to say, how the hell did you do this? And can we benefit from some insight?
Well, we were talking earlier about the benefit of being in California.
Yes.
And one of the benefits in homeless services of being in California right now is a program called CalAIM, which is a Medi-Cal or Medicaid, using part of Medicaid dollars, so healthcare for disadvantaged people's dollars, to address homelessness in communities. And so we became a CalAIM provider, which funds a lot of support services for people experiencing homelessness in separate buckets. There's a housing navigation bucket. There's a housing location, housing coordination. There is a once you find someone housing, there is money for the deposit. There's money for furnishings.
Wow.
So there's a lot of additional resources that have come into our system. They don't pay the full cost. No public contract ever pays the full cost, but they really have helped supplement. And then there's a new part of CalAIM called Enhanced Care Management. And that's really been, I think, the most successful thing in helping these folks. And remember, 88% of the people we see have a disabling condition. Great number are aging. And Enhanced Care Management is sort of a holistic approach to this. So it's a help people connect to the services they need to stay stable in their life. So the healthcare, mental health care, all of those kinds of services that are important. And so we make those linkages and then we follow up. And it's in the old days, we would check our box that we had made the linkage because we gave you the phone number to the county health, clinic.
Yeah.
Now we drive you to that clinic. We sit with you. We take care. We keep track of your appointment if we need to. We don't always need to. If you can get to that clinic on your own, we might ride the bus once with you and then you're on your own or whatever it might be.
Wow.
But we can go as far as to drive you to your appointment. We can go as far as to sit with you, attend your appointment with you and as your advocate. We can do any of those things in a whatever it takes approach. And when you can take a whatever it takes approach, you get these results, right? I doubt we'll have 100% stay in housing next year. That's a really high number. You can't go higher. But I know we'll be in the high 90s because I know these resources are there and I know we have a great team. We haven't talked about how we do our work yet. And if I could just take a minute, because I think this is the real secret sauce to Friendship Shelter. And this was there when I got there. When I came to Friendship Shelter in 2008, we had two programs. We had the Coast Highway Shelter and we had transitional housing in San Clemente that's now our youth housing. And we had about 15, 16 employees and a $700,000 budget. Today we have 130 employees. We have $15 million budget. But what hasn't changed is we approach everyone who walks through our doors first with love, first with curiosity and love and flexibility, and to say, what do you need? Tell me what you're experiencing. How can I help? And then trying to do whatever it takes to solve that problem. So we're first and foremost loving problem solvers who get really smart at being flexible and creative. And I love that about our team. The people who stay with us are people like that, people who really adopt that kind of approach to their work.
Wow.
They love to work together. They love to solve these problems. We have a bell we ring in our office every time someone gets housed. It's the happiest part of the day if that bell rings. So we have a Friday felt like a dance party. Somebody cranked the music up all day, and for some reason, that particular day, I'm one of the oldest people in the office, felt like they were playing my Spotify playlist. I really liked all the music. And so I'm sitting in my office and I'm still getting a lot of work done, but there's great music playing. We have fun, but we lead with love for each other and for the people that we're serving. That makes a huge difference.
How wonderful that Laguna Beach is benefiting from such a group as yours. I can't, it's just great. I don't know what to say.
Well, it was there before I got there, is what. Was my
you're
point.
Being modest.
No, I'm being accurate. We were founded by people in the community who saw a problem and their hearts told them they wanted to help, and so they started doing this work in churches. They eventually acquired the building, and that was there, and it was so strong that it would have been very hard to mess it up when I got there. But I vibed with that. I wanted to encourage that. That was in me too. And it really made it much easier to move forward knowing that I was among kindred spirits.
It was there.
You
embraced it and you fed it.
And have a lot of wonderful partners that are, like I said, you don't last if that doesn't inspire you, I think, at Friendship Shelter.
We just have about a minute left, and I wanted to say, if you want to know more about Friendship Shelter, it's friendshipshelter.org.
Yep.
an easy deal. And Dawn Price has been my guest today. And Trisha O'Brien, the nice Irish gal that I guess drank some green beer recently.
She didn't actually.
And I want to thank you both so very much for being here. Even the conversation offline has been thrilling, I have to say. So
it's been a real pleasure.
And if you missed part of the program and you want to hear it in its entirety or share it with someone who you feel it would be important for them to hear, it will be available later today on rainbowradio.org as a podcast. And you can listen to it on Amazon, all the other ones. Once it's posted, it's available just about anywhere. But you can find it easily on rainbow-radio.org. And anyone want to shout out to anyone? I want to say to Trisha that she's saying she left everyone back home, but they're all going to come visit. You know that.
That's expected. I've had one visitor so far. She just went back to St. Louis, and I sent her a picture. So before the show today, I walked down to the beach and saw that stone arch thing, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And I sent her a picture. She's like, I want to see it. I'm like, you know where I'm at.
Yeah.
It's like when my parents moved to Hawaii and I would go to Hawaii frequently. All my friends wanted to go with me because they wanted to go at free place to stay, all this. And mother would cook food and everything. So be forewarned, the Laguna Beach has a lot of notoriety. It's like what do they say? It's of Italy. It's the something of Italy.
Amazing place.
We are led at Friendship Shelter by a board of directors, and I would be remiss not to shout out our board president, Michael Gamrell, who found the show where the two of you were talking about Housing First, and he said, you need to reach out there. I said, I know, Craig. I will absolutely reach out. So shout out to Gam. He's the one who heard your first conversation and suggested I join in. So.
And I want to say that Laguna Beach Pride is having events, and their charity of choice is the Friendship Shelter. So we're going to take a certain percent of our proceeds. I'm generous, as generous as we can be. We can't give it all up.
Nope.
And those contributions will go towards the Friendship Shelter. And you also, when's your fundraiser?
June 26th at the Pacific Club, Healthcare and Homelessness, the intersection between healthcare and homelessness. We'd love to have you join us. It's a luncheon.
And you can find that on friendshipshelter.org.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone.
Love you all. Thank you for tuning in today for Rainbow Radio. It's Craig signing off. Hope you'll come back next week. I hope you enjoyed the program, and love to all. Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars.
I just woke up from a dream where you and I had to say goodbye. And I don't know what it all means, but since